the market was down yesterday and now going back up. What really is happening in the market? Keep this structure in your mind. If you happen to bounce from one level and that's your support, once you break below that, now that's your resistance. Unless you break above that, you are going to go to the downside. Now it can be 1, 2, 3 different retests, or it can just be one retest. Like here, you had a bounce, you broke below that, you came back to retest that, you got rejected. Then again, you made a different pattern, that's inverse head and shoulder, then you broke to the upside, came back lower. Now that goes back to the higher time frame structure. Now at this point of time, Bitcoin is doing this stuff. You got a bounce from the trend line. Now that's a short-term trend line, but you got a bounce. Now we're going back to test the moving average. This is a 100-day moving average. So if we manage to break the price above that moving average, okay, we have room to run to the upside. Say 50 is what you're eyeing, right? $50,000. Now if that doesn't happen, then it's like, this asset. There's another asset in the market. You broke the downside. Now we're coming back up to retest this one. So if you happen to retest and break back, that's okay. But if you get rejected at that level, we are going lower. That is different scenario, right? So you're looking at the same asset here. This was a support, then turned into a resistance. So now fast forward, each time when you go back, you test that level as a resistance or support. Here, it's resistance. Then you broke that one. You came back to test that one as a support. Then started making new pattern going back higher. So the same stuff. You look at different assets in the market, you get like, okay, this was a support before. Right now, it's acting as another support. Back then, it was a support. Right now, that's a long-term support for you. You zoom out and you see like, okay, that's been acting as a support resistance for some time. So now, you're bouncing. Fine, but you need to break back above this trend line to go bullish from here. It's not bearish, it's still inside the pattern neutral, but you need that structure because right now the Bitcoin dominance is showing you it's all over the room, right? It's going up, it's coming back down, it's going up, it's coming back down. That's still confusing in the market. So while you look at that stuff, then you come back to XRP, what XRP is doing right now. You're like, okay, fine. We actually went lower, we are inside this trend, we bounced. If you look at this particular candle, it gives you an idea of, okay, that's a bit more bulls entering in the market because there's a daily chart. If you go on to a 3-day chart of the same, say XRP, you go on a 3-day chart and you get the narrative like, okay, that's an engulfing candle for me, right? This particular candle here is an engulfing candle going above the previous one, which usually at a support is bullish. But yeah, obviously, you are most likely getting retest of the same bottom on a shorter time frame and then going back higher. So if that's the case, then yeah, you need to break back above this moving average. You're trending lower on a 4-hour, but you still have to break above that moving average. So that's what we just talked here on the daily time frame. You broke higher. Now you're retesting this. If you happen to stay above this moving average and bounce from there, that is great. You're going to come back higher to this level. But if you do not break this moving average to the upside, that's going to be a bit more bearish because at the top here you have the moving average, which is 100-day moving average on a 3-day, which right now is resistance. Then you go long term, then you are like, okay, that's a good stuff because on weekly chart you are like, okay, the price is getting supported by the 100-day moving average. That's a long-term resistance and now support. That is a bullish stuff for you, me, and anyone who is interested in XRP. So right now, when you look at the market, you are like, okay, there are different assets showing different possibilities. Say this one is XRP on a weekly showing you a different pattern. If we happen to bounce from this is the same structure, right? You're kind of getting the same bounce from the moving average, but just the difference is that bounce will break this pattern to the upside. Now there's another one, say XLM, kind of showing you that we are going to make an engulfing candle here, and if that happens, that's like, okay, we are going to go higher, right? So once you look at a pattern, you are like, okay, fine, I understand that pattern is there, but this is a short time structure. You're looking at a 12-hour chart. So you need to literally go on a macro higher time frame structure to validate what's happening there with respect to the macro perspective. So here you're like, okay, the price went up, it's correcting inside this falling wedge, but close to the support, you're making an inverse head and shoulder. So if you get this bounce, you're completing that inverse head and shoulder, but to break that is your confirmation. Even after that break, you need to keep your eye on the price. See, the price will definitely have this moving average as a resistance on a 3-day chart. That's a 100-day moving average. Obviously, you can zoom out to look on a weekly and you're like, okay, that's a little bit lower than that one from the 3-day structure. So you are still going to get that as a resistance. Whereas XRP is above this particular resistance. That's actually a bullish narrative. Now, yes, you do have to look at the price. You do have to look at everything. But understand, investments are not only made on the technicality of an asset. You look at the fundamentals. And as the fundamentals grow, you do look at what's really happening behind the scene. One of this we were waiting from 2020 is like PolySign. Now go look at who are the investors in that particular project, right? It's like custodian service, crypto is going mainstream. All of that is here. Look at who's there. Soros Fund. If you know who that is, what that's doing, you understand the importance of this project. They won't put money just like that. Now you look at all of these and you're like, okay, there's a lot of big investors investing in this one. And that is really huge. You go down, you look at this, Ath Btc, David Schoss. You get all those grand picture there. But making investment is fundamental and trying to time is really hard, so we never do that. It's better to buy near support, wait, get it a breakout, then go higher. But you see a breakout, okay, if you want, you're trying to take before this breakout, you move out and see whether it's going to break low. And if it happens to break lower, now we're waiting outside to see whether it's going to retest, go back up, or retest, go back lower. So that is what the market is doing. Now, we'll have to look at what Bitcoin is doing with respect to different time frame. Take that into the altcoin market and see, okay, which altcoins are going to do well, which are not. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. So now, as we discussed, yes, we do understand Bitcoin is bouncing. But the macro pattern still remains the same, right? We just look at this area and we are like, okay, fine. We are getting that wick where whenever the price goes lower, meaning sellers are pushing the price down, there are a lot of buyers who are absorbing that supply and pushing back into this trading range. But as long as you look at the price and you see like, okay, the price is above the moving average, that's actually fine. Now, even on a weekly, you're actually getting the same narrative here, where you are slowly bouncing to the upside. But one of the interesting stuff here, which I posted for my members before, was like this. Keep this one in mind. You're having a trend line on your RSI. You're following the pattern of higher high, higher low structure, and you're like, okay, right now, we are literally getting a higher high, but we need to make a higher low so that this higher high is actually valid. It's not a fake out, right? If you get a higher low, then automatically what you're going to expect after this is going to be a bounce. So if you happen to bounce from here, that's a higher low for you. Literally looking for a bounce to the upside. Now, that goes back to your trend analysis, pattern analysis. You can combine all of those, right? So this again can be a resistance. So unless you break above this one, you are still inside this consolidation pattern, which you started, correcting down. The momentum is to the downside. You're consolidating here. And if you happen to break to the downside, you go lower. But most likely, this range of support from a long period of time is going to hold. Right now, your moving average is also going up. So the average buyers in the market now has a high buying price. It's not like, the Robert Kiyosaki saying, okay, I bought in here, 6,000, 7,000 range. So it's good asset. If you're buying at 60, that's not. Great. But right now, you look at a lot of big institutional buyers entering here. 40,000, 45,000, 50,000. They are kind of massively holding this asset. Look outside. You're like, okay, that's huge inflation. Look at different countries having riots. Even Western developed countries are having trouble with food shortages. You are seeing supermarkets being looted. You are seeing people who are literally taking materials out without paying. All this are happening outside because the inflation is going higher. So if you are like, okay, I'm not going to let the inflation kill my purchasing power, you are moving into different assets. And Bitcoin is now considered one of an asset which a lot of institutions are buying into. So this may again push you higher. So yes, that's a weekly narrative. Now, this is kind of 19th of this month, and you go on to a monthly chart. So as you go on to a monthly chart, this is what you actually get. Fine. So if this narrative should stand, this is kind of closely following the candle close, and you get this narrative. See, the Bitcoin is right now trending like this. So if it happens to come back here and test, that's an ascending triangle for me. Now, I don't know how many of you guys agree, but if you just go on and look at ascending triangle, you actually see this pattern. So this is not big deal. You just type in that particular pattern and look at the history. One of the easiest stuff to do. You look at all the price history, then make your decision. Okay, if you are doing this, chances are that's a continuation pattern and you're going to go to the upside. And if you break to the downside, the trend is changing. If not, you are going to continue to the upside. That's a buy signal if you're a trader. But if you're a long-term investor, this potentially means it can really be a continuation pattern. So the odds are there. Now, you'll also have to look at the volume before you make any decision, right? If the volume of sellers is increasing, then the price is going lower. Whereas right now, the volume is going down on a monthly. Great. You step back into a weekly to check the same. You're like, okay, it's still going down, but from here, it's more or less stagnant. We are getting same range. Now we need a change. Now, if that change happens to be a slow increase in bullish momentum, that's again going to support the ascending triangle. So you're going to eye a break to the upside. Now, you're not looking for a $1 million Bitcoin right now. You're looking for an uptrend where you got wave 1, you got wave 2. To put that narrative into place, you can actually look at what happened in wave 1, 300%. Now you go lower and look at what happened in wave 2, 1300%. So you literally got 5 times. So that's kind of the average of crypto market, as you know. 2 to 3 times is what Elite Wave suggests, but we get 5 times as an average in crypto market. But that's Bitcoin. If you go look at the history of altcoins, you definitely do understand there are assets which does 10 times wave 1 in wave 2. So for Bitcoin, yes, the wave 2 is over, but for altcoin, you had this one balance. So yeah, going back to the Bitcoin and then looking for the market, you definitely get this narrative. Okay, that's done. So what's the wave 3, right? Wave 3 structure, most likely you're going to get the same narrative as the last one. Now, textbook pattern, it suggests more or less it's going to be equal to that of wave 1, and then you're going to reverse. So you can say, okay, 120 is close to that as your top range, but right now you still have room to the upside. That's the short story. But the hardest part is to see how long this level of consolidation is going to last, because in between, if you are leveraged, the market can still go lower. Maybe 29. A lot of people are saying that, but I think 33 is a possibility. Then you go break to the upside. So even that break is not going to be super high in this particular asset, but when you go on to different assets, you are going to get that narrative where you have upside. So now you get to see this particular pattern in Ether. Great. You actually really had this particular pattern on a weekly. You had the resistance, you broke to the upside. Now we are coming back to retest, and if you happen to bounce, that same structure as this one. Say it's an Adam and Eve or a different double bottom pattern, but again, it's all the same. You're getting there, right? Now, to do that easily, you can take a polyline and drop it like this. Say you get this one here, and followed by that, you actually get a rounded bottom pattern, which shows or suggests that's a repetition of the same structure but scaled down in Ether. Scaled down. You go back to XRP and you look at the pattern, it's scaled higher. Right? The corrective pattern is scaled higher. We understood that one. So that's a huge difference in ROI. And I personally think XRP, XLM, HBAR, these assets are going to do wonder this time. So the next question is, okay, if these assets are going to do wonders this time around, how can I buy more? I don't really have a lot of capital coming in, so how can I buy more? This is one of the questions we tried to answer before. A lot of people didn't actually get the point, but if you were here 2 weeks back, now you already have rewards in different node projects. They're doing okay, they are doing fine. You take out the profits, you buy these, right? You buy the dips. So say for example, Bitcoin is going to continue to stay close to this range. Ether is going to go lower. The worst case scenario, you get 30-40 days downside and consolidating there. Now you have a lot of rewards to actually move in here without paying much tax there, waiting 28-30 days. Now it differs based on project to project, but if you get that ability, it's easy to do this, to buy more without having to sell your house, without having to sell everything you have, to buy and get into this asset. Because once you understand this, you're fine. You're like, okay, I do understand this, and I understand that this is going to go higher, but I'm not going to risk my current lifestyle to get on to the next one. If you're single, yeah, it's all good. You can try. But if you're having family, you don't want to risk their life standard because of your greed, right? You have to balance those. And that's one of the reasons why in our Patreon, we give these directions. We kind of give whatever I get as a thought process, whatever I do for my portfolio, I inform them too. So you have that edge in the market, thinking as a long-term investor, trying to make profit, because you just look at what's happening in the market right now. You get a structure like this, fine. Yes, in some angle, it does feel like a channel. And for those who really want to closely try to follow, there is a possibility of this becoming a rising wedge, which is bearish, I agree. But right now, odds are leaning towards a channel, right? An ascending channel, which can still test 6,000 range, 7,000 range and break to the upside or not, will have to be seen. But that still suggests to you there is upside in this market. So make the right decisions, because in this asset, you have a lot of assets. In this asset class, you don't want to be in the assets which are going to do the downside most of the time. You make sure these assets have upside. Then if they are down, you're looking to buy them, right? If you're going on to an asset which doesn't have much utility, you're looking for gamble, right? You're just looking for gambling. There are a lot of people who are doing that with a little bit of their portfolio, like 0.5%, 1% below that. That's okay. But if your big money is in assets which can do wonders this time around, you are not actually worried about what's happening there, right? You are kind of like, okay, I understand what's happening in the market. I'm waiting for a breakout. I'll take my profits at the targets because I'm set with my targets. My bags are packed. I know what's happening. Now, whatever I get additional cash flow, I'll try to buy those assets with a lot of upside. So in this monthly digest, we are going to actually look at what assets are making these structure which can possibly give them a higher upside in the upcoming wave. I personally hope in next 3 months, 4 months time, we are going to get into that wave structure, entering into the wave 2 for most of the altcoins. So guys, if you received value for your time, please do hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done that already. And if you want these kind of updates for your portfolio with a lot of assets, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So guys, I'll meet you on the next video. Bye for now.